Welcome to the Insights on Internships from Professor Jones podcast, or IOI for short. If you're a student studying hospitality and tourism management, and you have an internship or work experience requirement, this podcast is for you. That also includes those of you in event management, or MICE emphasis as it's called in certain parts of the world. It's my objective to pass along the knowledge I've gained in nearly 50 years in the hospitality field. As an industry professional, I hired and managed interns. As a faculty member, I supervised students in their internships and oversaw internship courses. As an academic administrator, I developed curriculum that incorporated internships and work experience. Most recently, I've been working part-time at the front desk of a local hotel, the Seacrest Oceanfront Hotel in Pismo Beach, California. So I've experienced every aspect of the process. Each episode will typically be less than 15 minutes long. The topics will cover the entire range from determining the type of internship you want, through the actual internship experience, and finally the reflection afterwards on what you've learned and how to connect it to your future career ambitions. The topic of this episode is career ambitions in the workplace scenario. This is the third in the current series of practical experience from my current guest services role. I addressed this topic a little differently in the See What's Invisible episode as well. So I'm going to talk about in here, as far as the agenda is concerned, first, understanding your career ambition. Then, I'm going to go through 4 different workplace scenarios. Colleagues who don't share your career ambitions, 2 managers whose career path didn't include a college degree, 3 age and generational differences, and then finally 4 unions. And in each, I will include solutions to make it easier. Of course, these scenarios use my hotel experience, but it is applicable in whatever hospitality and tourism industry internship you might be doing. So first, let's talk about understanding your career ambition and future management perspective. So let's be clear about your career ambition, which is to become a manager in a hotel or other hospitality and tourism business. So what is your goal for an internship? It's having a future management perspective. Now, you're not going to be doing a management job, but you need to think about what the perspective is for the learning process in the step of the internship. So let's talk about scenario number 1 is your colleagues. So what are some of the pitfalls you might experience? And I'm going to relate some of these to what I've seen in my own role as well. They could be resentful of you as a college student. Some might think it isn't fair because you're not there for the long run, and yet you're getting the same kinds of shifts that they are, if you will. They may have tried college themselves, but didn't feel it was for them. They're not getting paid to train you, and yet you may have to be asking them questions along the way. They don't understand the bigger picture of the industry. That's another one. They're limited to the mechanics of the job. So they're good at a task, but they may not have the bigger picture aspect that you're trying to learn, and you're trying to learn from others who have that. And there may be a reluctance to make decisions beyond their pay grade. In other words, that's a supervisor's job or that's the manager's job to make that decision, so I'm not going to make that. So some of the symptoms to watch in this case, well, attitude is the obvious one. That one seems to be most easily detected. But you could also look at perhaps some cases where maybe you have some second guessing of your decisions, sometimes without telling you. Maybe somebody made a change on something that you did afterwards, but didn't really let you know about that change. They could be looking over your shoulder trying to catch you in a mistake, as opposed to passing on advice. Instead of giving you direction, they're waiting to see if you're going to make a mistake, and then they either jump in or they don't assist, if you will. So let's talk about some solutions to consider in these, because I think this is the most challenging one, is doing it with your colleagues. So first off, I think number one, you have to develop empathy and understanding for them. Okay, not everyone has had the same opportunities or chosen the same path in life. They may be very happy with their aspect of life in terms of where they're going and what they're doing. So be empathetic and understand. A second is focus on common goals. You're both looking at providing excellent customer service and ensuring guest satisfaction in whatever role you have in a hotel or a meeting aspect or whatever it may be. There's a common goal here, so you're working together to make that happen. You can learn from all of their experience. Your colleagues may have valuable insights and some practical knowledge that they've gained over their years of experience in the industry. So take the opportunity to learn from them, whether it's about customer service techniques or operational procedures or effective communication skills, whatever it may be. You need to lead by example in terms of your own aspect of things. Instead of focusing on perhaps changing others, which is not your role and not your responsibility, focus on being the best version of yourself. Concentrate on making sure that you're doing what you think is the best thing to do. Offer support. If your colleagues express interest in advancing their careers or improving their skills, offer support and guidance. I've had that from my colleagues that I work with now. Some solutions with regards to the future management focus aspect is think about how would you manage them. Learn what those you will manage think and feel. Focus on continuous learning. Take advantage of every opportunity. Seek out additional training, attend workshops or seminars, and pursue relevant certificates that enhance your skills while you're there, along with knowledge from in the hospitality management area. Whatever they offer, take it. For example, I've done a couple of reservations training courses. I've taught those, but I find that I'm learning from someone else teaching it and playing the role that I am today. Have a training mindset. So, in other words, be equal to your colleagues when you're in a training, not one who may have more management perspective and more management knowledge from what you've already learned in either your past experience or in your classroom aspect of it. So try and play the role that they expect, which is to be equal. Review your thoughts with managers. In other words, when you're thinking about things that may be related to your business mindset and perspective and the issues that are related there, talk to your managers specifically outside of the context of where you're with your other colleagues. Don't refer to your other colleagues to give you those kind of decisions. Go to the people who you can learn from. Now, the second scenario are the managers themselves, right? I think it's important to know your management team's background. Do they have a college degree? Was it in hospitality and tourism as a major or something else? I'll relate my scenario. My assistant general manager, who is the manager in charge that we're really essentially reporting to, she went to a hotel school. So I know she understands terminologies. She understands some of the systems. She's someone who reads and keeps track of what goes on in the industry. So I can relate some of the things that I know and I'm doing with her quite well. But what if they work their way up as opposed to getting a college degree? Again, in my scenario, essentially the number two in the management scheme, and they sometimes work as equals, is our head of housekeeping. And she's an outstanding person who I really love and enjoy working with. And she worked her way up. And she's in line for that next assistant general manager role when a new property comes along in the process of things. And she has so much knowledge, and I enjoy learning from her. I go back to my first hotel GM, the late Bud Davis at the Chicago Marriott in downtown Chicago. He started off as a banquet waiter at the Conrad Hilton Hotel. Now, we used to go to functions there, and he'd be at a table, and the waiters that were there for all those years still knew him, and they loved him, and they came to him. He didn't go through college. He didn't go through that aspect of things. His kids did, but he didn't. In fact, he was actually a minor league baseball player in the Chicago Cubs system. But he was an amazing person to learn from and had great skills in managing people. So I think there's some recognition of some basic facts here. First off, managers will set the example on how to manage. Now, that could be good or bad. Hopefully it's good, but you can also learn from some of the maybe approaches that you don't particularly care for. But colleagues will teach you how you should manage your team members so you can really learn from them. So some solutions to keep in mind in doing that from a management perspective are attend management meetings if you can. Just be there to listen in. Ask them to be part of the management meetings or whatever may be going on there. Recognize your degree benefit. It'll help you progress faster, but there are many ways to move up in management. So you might get there quicker than someone who had to work their way up, but they have the same ability to get there in this business. Textbooks versus reality. While textbooks are great learning resources, they don't have all of the answers. And that's why you do an internship, to learn from that. And observe conflicts. Pay attention to conflicts and how they're resolved. Hopefully not conflicts with you, but in terms of how those are handled with your other colleagues and other people. Scenario number 3, age and generational differences. Now, my situation is probably the opposite of yours. My colleagues and supervisors are in their 20s, and I'm their grandfather's age. Some of them might think I'm too old for the job even, but remember, many of the guests are actually my age. So your situation may be just the opposite. You may be their kids' age, but the results are very similar in terms of what you might experience. They may have had to pay their dues over the years to get there, and you're moving up quicker. So I suggest that what you try and do is learn from them. An older, longer-term colleague should be someone to learn from as they have seen what works and what doesn't. There's a book called Wisdom at Work, The Making of the Modern Elder by Chip Connolly, a friend of mine and former head of, founder of Joie de Vivre Hotels. And he wrote this book based on his experience when he was hired to head up hospitality for Airbnb. And the senior management was considerably younger than him. Well, yours is almost a reverse premises here, but you need to think that just because when they're older, they may be wiser and you may have things that you can learn from them. They may not be as technically savvy as you in some cases, but they certainly are someone you can learn from. Admire their loyalty. They try to understand why they're so loyal. Why have they stayed so long at the property or at the organization that you're working for? It might influence your management style in terms of how to get other people to do that. And the fourth scenario is working in a union hotel. Now, a union scenario is a unique one, and it's important to understand what the differences are here. Most likely, you won't be required to be a union member when you're working there as an internship, but there are restrictions in your job scope. Now, you can't be put in a position where you're taking the place of a union member or doing the job of a union member. My experience, although some may tell you differently, but my experience in talking to union leaders in my interactions is that they support interns. So don't believe otherwise. They do support interns. So some solutions to the union aspect are a bit different. First off, understand the collective bargaining agreement. That's the rights of the union members. You need to understand how that works in the particular company that you're working for. Respect union rights. They have a right to organize. They have a right to collective bargain, which is the process of determining wages, benefits, all of those kind of things. They have the right to strike or protest. For example, Los Angeles has been in essentially a protest scenario and have had issues with their local union of Unite Here for several months, and it was just recently settled. Now, during that period of time, if you're staying in one of those hotels, or certainly if you're working there as an intern, that may create some conflicts in terms of what you can and can't do again. You have to make sure that you're following protocols and procedures. What are the work assignments, the scheduling, the grievance resolution? We'll talk more about that in a second. The disciplinary actions, how they're handled. Another really important point is to understand that you have to respect seniority. Seniority takes the primary focus on how someone gets promoted and how they advance in their careers. Not necessarily on achievements, but seniority takes first preference. As I say, you have to understand the grievance procedure. If a dispute arises between management and union members, it's handled most of the time not by human resources, but through a shop steward. And then they relate to human resources. Be mindful of the work culture. Where do you as an intern fit in? Where might you potentially step over the line in terms of a union position? Be careful of that. Make sure you're well aware of that. And build relationships. You might be on the other side of the bargaining table with some of them down the road. So understand how they think and what they're about. So in summary of the career ambition issues that you might face in the scenarios, always keep in mind that you're going to be a manager. So how will you manage? Thanks for listening to this episode of my IOI podcast. If you heard something you liked, please share it with your fellow classmates. I'd also encourage you to forward it on to your faculty internship supervisor. Hey, you could even include your supervisor at your place of work. Enjoy your internship learning experience.